Who's the stupidest person you've ever met? And what story perfectly sums up their stupidity? An old co-worker named James. We worked at McDonald's and were both 16. One time while mopping the lobby, he for some unknown reason decided to chase a number of customers around with the mop, yelling, "I'm gonna get ya!" He was fired on the spot. My brother and I were in the kitchen one day as teenagers. My brother was filling the sink to wash dishes. When the sink was nearly full, he went to turn the tap off, but it wouldn't budge, so the water kept flowing. I tried turning it too, but with no success. This is when the panic set in. The level of the water was rising fast and we didn't want to flood the kitchen. He took big saucepans out of the press to fill with water to keep things from overflowing, while I was in a frantic scramble under the sink trying to find the mains to turn it off there. I couldn't find it. Now really panicking, I took over the pot filling duty and my brother went running off to look for Dad as quick as he could. Dad came running in with my brother while we were shouting at him about looking for the mains. Dad just came over to the sink and pulled the plug out of the hole, laying all the water down the drain. I've told this story before, but I like telling it because fuck Tammy. I had a boss named Tammy. One night we were all working late doing stock take, and we were discussing the impending lunar eclipse. Someone asked what happens during eclipse. Tammy grandly explained that the eclipse would occur when America went in front of the moon, blocking Australia's view of it. Like she literally thought the Earth stretched itself into like a U-bend or neck pillow shape, and half of it stayed in our normal orbit, and the other half stretched itself over and around to casually block the moon for the rest of the Earth. My roommate for the last 3 years once said that if solar technology keeps advancing at the rate it is, we will absorb all the energy made by the sun and fix global warming. Not 5 minutes after attempting to inform this poor fellow about how the sun's energy output is not determined by what the energy eventually interacts with, he states that wind farms are worse because they cause tropical storms. I hope he is just an epic troll. I don't know. Had a guy in a third-year undergrad developmental psych course raise his hand in a full lecture hall and ask the professor, "Prof, do infants diagnosed with SIDS get asthma later in life? Like, are they more likely to get asthma?" SIDS stands for Sudden Infant Death Syndrome. He just kept pursuing the question. The prof didn't understand how she could answer it. She thought there was some kind of logic in it that she wasn't seeing. Finally, some girl took the initiative to shout across the room, "No, they are not more likely to get asthma. They are dead. They have died suddenly, and will thus not be at risk of developing asthma." Great day. He always sat in front of me, and I would see him writing just absolutely horrible poetry and song lyrics. I am half Korean, going to high school in the Midwest during the 1992 LA riots. My typing teacher pulled me into the hallway and asked if I had an uncle or something I can call in LA to make the riots stop. She said she knew that we were all close and we all have stores and whatnot. Therefore, I must have a connection there. I was like, "Lady, even if I did have an uncle I could call, do you think he's Batman?" My cousin. All through public school, she was a snob who looked down on everyone. She was super stylish and struggled academically. We graduated in 2014. We both went to colleges, not the same one. She got a job at a bar, stayed out late drinking. Her boyfriend told her she didn't need to complete college, so she just stopped showing up. Didn't drop, just stopped showing up. Completely flunked out. Here comes the mega stupidity. Our families live hours away from her college at the time. Her family went to move her back home. My cousin's mom noticed a pile of clothes in the corner. The mom said, "What's that, your laundry? Pack it and we'll wash it when we get home later." My cousin, I kid you not, "You can wash those?" Turns out she'd been throwing away clothes instead of washing them. She claimed she didn't know she could, yet she washed her undergarments and bras without a hitch. She's now at home with her family and has started doing more chores to show an increase in responsibility. She still tries to throw clothes away, citing that she didn't know they could be washed and reused. Makes me wonder what she thought all those years before college, before she left home. She wore some of the same outfits repeatedly. She had to have known they could be washed. When I was in the Navy, there was a cook on my ship. He once served rare chicken. I genuinely couldn't tell whether he was trying to cover up his limitless incompetence or if he genuinely believed that rare poultry is a real thing. He was dumb enough to believe it. Another time he just filled a pan with ground beef and called it meatloaf. Another time he was supposed to make sugar cookies. Several hundred of them for the whole crew. He didn't bother to read the label on the container he opened. And apparently he didn't taste the batter at any point. And he actually made salt cookies. He used up all the remaining salt in the pantry, and we had unseasoned food for the remaining several weeks of the mission, during which time the captain assigned someone to be the cook's bodyguard. Edits. I was not aware that chicken sashimi is a thing. Still, intentionally uncooked meat and unintentionally partially cooked meat are very different. This was the latter. You can't make salt from seawater for several reasons. 1, there's no facilities to do it on board. 2, no captain would jeopardize the success of a military mission by unnecessarily feeding the crew food of unknown cleanliness. You couldn't just assign someone else to cook. I didn't specify, but this was on a submarine. There are no spare people to reassign. And cook is already the easiest, least able to cause disaster job on the ship. There was a trouble kid I went to high school with. He struggled with school but had friends, but was starting to do drugs and go down a bad way. He decided to photocopy the front and back of a $20 bill, cut it out of normal paper, and glue the two halves with Elmer's glue. What's even more sad is that to test his new money, he went to the gas station and bought some gum, and it actually worked. So in his mind, it must have meant that it was foolproof. So then he tried to go and deposit the glued up money at an actual bank. He was obviously found out and arrested. I don't know where he is now, but I'm assuming he is making similar life choices. My flatmate at university did something similar. He put a whole bunch of effort into forging 10-pound notes. Researched paper, found some spray adhesive that was just the right consistency, got a hold of a very sharp craft knife and cutting board, figured out how to fake the metal strip and watermark with kitchen foil and crafty printing. He had an excellent printer. His copies were pretty good, but by no means perfect, so he and his accomplice Joe decided to keep 2 simple rules. Only use them in dimly lit bars when it was too busy for staff to check every note, and only ever take 1 copy out of the house. That way, if they were caught, they could claim it was an honest mistake. They got them in their change, etc. Well, at first, it worked surprisingly well. They'd buy 1 drink with the dodgy 10, pocket the change, and nip back to the flat to grab another. In fact, it worked so well that they got cocky. One day, my flatmate was out with Joe in a crowded area in broad daylight. When they decided to roll a joint, Joe took a bag of weed out of his pocket and passed it over, right in front of 2 police officers. Of course, the officers stopped and searched him and found over 200 pounds worth of forged notes, all with the same serial number. Had a next-door neighbor who robbed a Howard Johnson's at the top of our street at gunpoint, wearing a ski mask, took the money, took off the mask, and was walking home 2 blocks down said street when cops pulled him over and found the mask, the gun, and the money. He was wasted and asked them, would it help if I said I'm sorry? Got a couple years in Rikers Island, came out, broke into a local apartment house, stole some money and jewelry, got stuck out on a fire escape when the ladder wouldn't go down, and he had closed the window behind him. Couple more years. That's 2 stories, I guess. There's a few more, but you get the picture. He did leave me a box of cassettes when he went up one time. Among them, the Allman Brothers live at the Fillmore. I became a lifelong fan, so thanks unnamed next-door failed robber. He was actually a really nice guy and like a young Ray Liotta handsome. Just dumb as a brick. I know a guy who smokes a lot of weed and is fairly overweight. He had been trying to find work but was having trouble finding a job since everything he was interested in drug tested. He told my boyfriend that he had a plan that might help him pass a drug test. Since weed supposedly gets stored in your fat cells, he proposed that he should just eat even more than he normally does so he can gain weight. That way the fat that he gained would replace the weed fat. Boom, problem solved. Don't know if the stupidest, but pretty damn stupid. We were on a drive through an animal park. We see an animal. She asks, what kind of meat would that one be? Someone replies, oh, it'd probably taste similar to beef, I imagine. A few minutes later, we see a different animal. She asks, what about that one? Would it be like a fillet or a T-bone or something? Then I realize this woman thinks different cuts of meat come from different animals. Once at a restaurant in New Orleans, my friend ordered macaroni and cheese. At the table with about 15 other people, he says out loud, how did macaroni and cheese become a thing? To which I replied, what do you mean? He says, I mean, it's so redundant, you know? I say, what? How is macaroni and cheese redundant? And he says, think about it. You've got cheese and then you have pasta, which is made of cheese. He thought all pasta was made of cheese. My freshman year roommate dropped a class because he wanted to play his PlayStation more. It put him below the minimum credit threshold for his scholarships, and his parents owed $40,000.